on Zoom. I'd like to excuse Superintendent Colby is joining on Zoom, I believe. And then Debbie Brownell is also on Zoom. Debbie, we can see you. Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for being here. You don't have your mask on though, Debbie, so I don't know if we can.
Are you supposed to print the credit cards?
So we'd like to begin tonight by starting with our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd all rise and join with me, we'll recite our pledge. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Like on the corner.
All right, on tonight's agenda, Lieutenant Cole or Tanya, do you have any written communications that weren't already sent to the board? Okay.
Scott, I just wanted to quickly object to having an in-person meeting without the public being able to attend in person. I am not in favor of that, and I know we're here, but I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, thank you. We'd also like to remind the school board or anyone on Zoom that if you'd like to speak to a specific action item to put that in the chat, and Dr. Bloomquist will be monitoring that, and we will allow you time to speak at the appropriate moment. Items 2.3 and 2.4 are national or financial report, and then national counseling. I don't know if there's anything else we need to say on that.
Yeah, this is Kirk. Item 2.4 is a proclamation that we annually traditionally read into the minutes for recognizing National Art Council for National School Counseling Week. So as the board chair, if you would be able to read that into the minutes, that would be great.
I would be happy to. Very effective communication. The proclamation, is that what that is? State of Oregon Proclamation, Office of the Governor. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in schools, and whereas school counselors continue to assist students, staff, and parents cope with the ongoing challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, I, Kate Brown, Governor of the State of Oregon, hereby proclaim February 7th through 11th, 2022 to be National School Counseling Week in Oregon, and encourage all Oregonians to join in this observance. It is signed by Kate Brown and Cynthia Fagan, Secretary of State. We do want to express our gratitude to all the counselors in our school district. So thank you for what you're doing.
Boots on the ground.
All right, 3.0, our consent agenda. We have approval of our February 8th board agenda, as well as approval of our board draft minutes from January 25th, as well as our personnel report. So I will entertain a motion to approve those agenda items.
So moved.
Second, Coolman.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. 4.0 are reports. 4.1.1 principals report from our middle school. So principals Blanchard, Lingo, and Savage. So we'll go in that order, I guess. So Principal Blanchard, would you like to start us off tonight?
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate you having us here tonight. I'd like to start with an academic goal that we are really proud of over here at North. We just finished our second round of reading inventory for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which we will use for our universal screening evaluations. I'm happy to say that at all 3 grade levels, the number of kids that are showing as proficient readers is on the climb, culminating in 68% of our current 8th graders reading at a proficient level or above. And I think that number is a striking number. When you look at most years, the school is right about at the state level, which is just over 50% of students passing the Smarter Balance. So I'm looking forward to how we do on the English language arts part of Smarter Balance this year. What I'm probably most proud of in this is that when we look at our subpopulations and specifically special education and ELL students, all or both of those at all 3 grade levels showed a marked improvement, with the number of students in 6th grade special ed, 24% more students are now showing as proficient readers. And so it's always nice to look at your school as a whole, but when you can look at your subpopulations and specifically those that may face additional challenges along the way, to see the growth and the increase in the number of kids that are proficient is something that we are really, really proud of. I think more than anything, I mean, I'll always give a shout out to our teachers, but I think the most important thing to take away from this is how important it is for kids to be in school. This is a sign of our kids being able to attend school in person every day with people who know how to teach English language arts. And then in addition to that, having core teachers who are making vocabulary a primary component of their lesson, which contributes to the overall health of a reader. Some athletic information to share with you. Basketball and wrestling, both of them are in full swing. 4 basketball teams, 2 at the girls 7th grade level and 2 at the 8th grade level. A lot of new girls participating, but having a really great time. And a number of coaches who have a lot of grace and patience for those kids who are attempting things for the very first time. We'll culminate the season on February 23rd with the North-South 8th grade basketball game at Grants Pass High School, always an event that our kids look forward to. Wrestling concludes a little bit earlier. A week from this coming, or actually this Saturday, is the 7th and 8th grade conference tournament up in Roseburg. So they'll finish their season on Saturday. And a big deal for us over here at North tomorrow is we are hosting the 6th grade conference tournament, and there are approximately 120 students who will be here. This is a new endeavor for us that usually happens at the high school. So a little bit smaller gymnasium over here, but a lot of good people preparing to put on a good event. Next week is Valentine's Day. We have a Spirit Week that has a Valentine theme to it. Students will be dressing up. One day it's pink, one day it's red. There is a Wacky Wednesday and then a Pattern Day on Thursday with no school on Friday. In addition to that, we'll have valograms that students are completing with nice notes and a piece of candy that will be delivered to students of their choice. One event that we're really looking forward to, which is kind of new for us, it's a combination between the 2 middle schools. Sean McKee, our new choir teacher at the 2 schools, will be putting on a combined performance March 14th at the PAC. So it'll be the first time that Sean gets to go take a group of kids to the PAC and bringing the 2 schools together to perform. So looking forward to that when you don't get to have them together to practice, but he's amazing. And I know there are a number of board members who like to participate and see the music. And so hoping that you're going to consider doing that on March 14th. Last thing I'll share is our Brain Bowl. Typically, the multiple schools get together and have a competition. With COVID the way it is this year, that's been radically different. Schools do it on their own. They have their own moderators. Scores have to be provided back to Southern Oregon University, who will compare that with the other schools in your division and then announce a winner. We've had, there's 4 teams in our league, 3 competitions so far, and North is currently 2-1, comprised of 10 members that encompass grades 6, 7, and 8. So Thank you for listening to what's happening over at North. We're proud of what our kids and our staff are doing, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Lingo.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blanchard. I'm going to say some of the same things that Mr. Blanchard just got done talking about in terms of athletics and some leadership events, but our basketball and wrestling are going full steam after each being put on pause for a little bit. They had to take a break because of the COVID that was going on in early January, but they're both out working hard now. Our basketball teams have a lot of games coming up in the next 2 weeks, probably more games than practices, which can be frustrating for coaches trying to teach, but that's the nature of being put on pause and then trying to make up all those games later. As Tommy said, the sixth grade districts at North tomorrow is exciting for our kids and families to be able to attend locally. So we're excited for that. And then they'll rest of the team will conclude their season up at Roseburg on the 12th. So wrestling will be finishing up. We've got our track and field signups going and lots of students registering for that outdoor sport, which will be exciting with the weather getting warm and changing to a better time of year. And the thing I'm most looking forward to is our basketball season winds down here February 23rd at the high school for that last 8th grade game. Our PTSA recently bought our school a Trojan mascot costume. It looks similar to the USC Trojan mascot, but in green and gray instead of red and gold. So we'll be hoping to break that out for that big rivalry game next week, and then, or a couple weeks from now. Our leadership is doing a Find Your Heart Day. There'll be, every student will have their name on a heart somewhere in the school on a locker. And when students find their name, they bring that in and they get a little piece of candy. And then we'll also be doing ballograms, kind of like what Mr. Blanchard described. Students can write little notes to each other and then those will be delivered with a piece of candy. We're also looking forward to seeing those choirs on March 14th at 7 o'clock at the PAC, as Mr. Blanchard said. I think that Mr. McKee's been a wonderful addition to our GP family, and he's done great things with our middle school choir. So we're excited to see what those kids are up to on March 14th. One thing that we started at South as the second semester started, we're beginning an attendance incentive. And so each week we let the classes know, the grade levels know how their particular grade level is doing with attendance. And at the end of the month, the grade level with the highest attendance percentage will get free Kona shaved ice the following month when Kona Ice comes on campus. And so that's traditionally been a fundraiser that kids can buy shaved ice and it goes towards our PBIS program. And rather than use that money to go to the PBIS program, it'll just be used to give those kids their free reward for coming to school. So right now, as of week 1, our 6th graders are in 3rd place with a little over 91% attendance. 8th graders are in 2nd with 92%, 0.5%. And then our 7th graders are barely in front right now with 92.78. So we'll keep updating them each week. And hopefully by the end of the month, we have, some improved attendance because of that. Ms. Reimer has been instrumental at our school with a PBIS reboot. And so we started the last week with trying to give more positive recognition to the positive behaviors that we're seeing rather than reflecting too often on the negative behaviors. And kids are really excited about that. Our office has gotten busy with kids bringing in tickets, recognizing their good behaviors so they can get entered into drawings for prizes for doing the right things around South that teachers are recognizing. And then I'll just conclude really quickly with a few pieces of data similar to Mr. Blanchard with our reading inventory and our iReady. In our reading inventory scores, after our most recent assessment, 54% of our students overall showed growth through the first half of the year. But what was really cool was all of our subpopulations showed more growth than that. So our special education students showed 64% growth. Our English language learners showed 61%, and our homeless population 57%. And then overall, our 6th graders did really outstanding. 72% of them showed growth from their beginning of the year assessment. And then on the math front, our iReady, again, particularly proud of our 6th grade data. Students that started the year two grade levels or below their current grade level. that percentage fell from 51% to 38%. So fewer kids were 2 grade levels or below when we tested again later in the year. And then the students that are at grade level or above rose from 14% to 27%. So 6th graders are really doing some good work and showing great growth. So thank you all for your support and a chance to share a little bit what's going on at South.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Mr. Savage.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about what's going on in GP Flex. I'm sorry for not having a PowerPoint with the fun stuff that our kids are doing this time. I'm a little bit drier this time with just some information for you. I will report on our middle schoolers, but I'll also throw in a little bit of high school information in there as well. One of the things that I would like to speak to regarding our students in GP Flex at secondary is that something that some may not know is that for a student to 100% complete a course in Edgenuity, it means that they have to do every single unit lesson, every single quiz, and every exam. They can't skip any assignments. And if they fail a quiz, they have to retake it. If they don't pass it a second time, they have to go back, review the lesson, show the teacher the notes that they reviewed the lesson, and take the quiz again. So every quiz that they take has to be passed before they can move forward. And so when speaking of our middle school students, anybody that has had a middle school student or taught middle schoolers knows how hard it is for a middle school student to have 100% of their assignments turned in a class and have all of their quizzes passed as well. And so with our middle schoolers, I would like to report to you that 124 courses in middle school over Q2 were 100% complete. So it means that 124 of those classes that our middle schoolers took had 0 missing assignments and showed 0 failed quiz scores after their retakes. And I find that to be pretty remarkable because I taught middle school for about 12 years, and I can't even count the number of times that a middle school student would complete their work and just forget to turn it in. And so I want to applaud our middle school students for their 100% work completion and quiz passing. I also want to talk about how that relates to the number of multiple class failing rate in middle school. I'm happy to report that our middle schoolers had a decrease of multiple class failures of 14% from Q1 to Q2. Really impressive in that is that our 7th graders alone had a decrease in 24%. And so that's quite a bit of improvement over the course of 1 quarter from one to the next. So I'm really excited to get to look through and take a peek at who those students specifically were and then congratulate them through our newsletters and Parent Square reports. And I'm sure that parents will be really happy to see that improvement as well. With our high school students, I would like to report to you that GP Flex over the course of semester 1 now has 7 high school graduates, which is very exciting. A couple of them were students that were out there on the truancy tracker and weren't attending anywhere, and we were able to urge them to come on back and finish up their course credits, and they were able to earn their high school diploma. We have 3 more seniors who have completed all their credits, and we are just waiting on them to finish their personal learning requirements, and then we can issue them high school diplomas as well. Looking into the future, very shortly, parents will be receiving a mid-year parent survey. You may recall that I shared the results of our 9-week parent survey with you very early in the year. We're going to follow that up with another survey to parents and find out how we're doing and what are some of the thoughts that they have about GP Flex and what's happening there for their families and their students. We are also getting ready to administer the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which GP Flex students will participate in. We will be able to administer that in person or remotely, and families will have a choice of which manner their students take that in. And so it'll be a pretty interesting period of time there in April when we start doing our Smarter Balanced Assessments with our GP Flex students. One more thing of note is with the change in the quarter end semester at secondary, we were able to bring in 44 students that had been sitting on the wait list. And so although we did send a few back to the building, we were able to bring in quite a few more than that off the wait list. So we now have a pretty hefty group there at secondary that are working with our teachers. And at our middle school and high school teaching sessions, we have added math-specific help session times built into the help session schedule, which we've not been able to offer before. And our secondary teachers are also building in content-specific lessons during the week that are noted on the help session as well. So our teachers are beginning to address specific instructional needs during help session and check-in times, which is something that they're very happy to be able to do and that we're happy to offer. Other than that, that's all I really have to share for secondary this evening.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board to our principals? Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate all that you're doing for our middle schools. So thank you for being here this evening. We will go on to 4.1.2, our supplemental reading materials. So I'll turn the time over to Director Evans and Teresa Conley to talk about some of the books that are being proposed for next year.
Good evening, everyone. Before I hand it over to Mrs. Connolly to talk about the supplemental reading materials the Language Arts Department at Grants Pass High School is proposing, I just want to briefly talk through the process with you of how we do not only the supplemental reading list, but also the new courses that follow this report. So the Parent Advisory Council meets monthly, and this month they met and reviewed all of the reading materials as well as all the planned course statements you're going to hear about tonight. Regarding the reading materials, you won't actually take formal action tonight. We'll have the books available for checkout for anybody that wants to review them before you formally adopt them at your next scheduled meeting. So that's not an action item tonight. The Parent Advisory Council had lots of rich discussion. We had a number of our parents who read all of the books that you're going to hear about tonight. And in that conversation, the Language Arts Department did make a change to what they're recommending, and you see that on the handouts today. Ms. Connolly will kind of talk through each book and the why and what grade level it's going to be at. We'll be circling back to our Parent Advisory Council to talk about the reading levels of each book. There was some concern over the Lexile levels being too simple or easy. And so that was some feedback, and I think Teresa will address that with you tonight as well. So that's the supplementary reading materials. The new courses, when we get there, they were all unanimously approved. You're going to hear a couple really great presentations tonight about those new courses. You will take formal action on those tonight, and we will put those in our course catalog, which will be finalized this month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Connolly, our fantastic department chair at Grants Pass High School, to talk about the supplemental reading list.
Okay. So I'm not in charge of the PowerPoint, but I think we can go to, we started this journey, I would say about 2 years ago, looking at our curriculum and trying to see what it is we present to our students. You know, what materials? Are we clinging to the classics? Are the writers all predictable and of one Caucasian, etc.? And what we ended up finding is that we were very deficient in representing voices of different ethnicities, right? Different nationalities, different cultures. And we took that rather seriously because as a humanities course, it should really be one of our goals to present this diverse human experience. So unanimously, we agreed as a department to start this journey in looking for pieces that we could add to our curriculum. And we sort of used as a guideline, there's this really amazing essay written by a woman named Rudina Sims Bishop. And in it, she challenges us to remember that literature is there to help transform the human experience and to reflect it back to the readers. And there should be some variety that when I'm reading a piece of literature, perhaps I will see pieces of myself reflected back to me. That's very affirming. I should also be able to see pieces of the world and other lives that I personally have not lived. That helps me grow in compassion and empathy. And literature should also show us, maybe she describes it as a sliding glass door, right? Like something I could possibly be, some experience I might be able to have. So kind of looking at that idea as literature being a mirror that can reflect who I am, a window where I can see others and their experiences, and a sliding glass door. We went by grade level, 9, 10, and 11. We stopped at the senior level because that's where we offer our selectives. But we took a look at what we offer at 9, 10, and 11. And we just tried to think, what sort of diversity and experience and voice do we have? So I think the next slide shows the very first piece that we added. This was last year, Sandra Cisneros. She's a Latinx writer. And, we read this, we worked through our own process that we have for looking at whether we want to suggest a book is brought to the Curriculum Council. And we all agreed this was a very accessible book and one that would work at the 9th grade level. I also want you to know that we try not to operate in our own little vacuum. So I've made connections to other teachers in the Valley in Southern Oregon, teachers from Ashland High School and Phoenix Talent High School, teachers from South Medford High School. And I've also been working with Southern Oregon University to try to get their input, especially in the teaching program, at what they're seeing going on in the different high schools with literature. So that also helped us sort of start this process instead of just looking at all the possibilities. It sort of helped winnow that down. So this one is being taught at the freshman level. So the next slide then would probably bring up the ones we would like to suggest for the sophomore level. The first one I'll talk about is crossover. And this one is really, I think, a perfect fit for our essential classes. And what we're discovering, especially in the last few years, is the students who are in the essential classes are not independent readers. So I don't worry so much about a Lexile level with them. That's just the truth. I'm trying to find things that will engage them, things that may be simply written, but don't come across to them as if it's a grade school book. And I do think Essentials meets that need. Kwame Alexander has written this book. It's in verse, so it makes it, very readable. And it follows the story of two twins. They love basketball. It's kind of one of the extended metaphors going on here is basketball. The father is the coach. The mother is a principal at the high school. It is, especially when I consider it's written by a Black author, it doesn't show maybe, things like gang life or New York inner street experience. This doesn't feel traumatic like that. This is definitely celebrating the positives of their own culture. And he works into it like the rhythms of jazz music, which the father absolutely loves jazz music, references different musicians. And sometimes the poetic verse will actually try the syncopation of jazz music. So that makes it a little fun as well. So I think this would be a great book for the essentials. But I was also thinking at the sophomore level, we have a book called the part-time, oh darn it, I never get it right. The True Part-Time Diary, or that's right, Part-Time Indian. And that book was approved, oh, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But sometimes we have parents who are very uncomfortable with that book. And so let's say if I have a class of 30, maybe in that class, there's one student who will not read that book, and we provide an alternative. The alternative, truthfully, is not really engaging, but it does the trick. It explores a culture. So what I would like to also propose is that for students who do not feel comfortable reading the part-time Indian book, that this could be their alternative instead of the one we currently offer. So that's this one. And then the other one is The House on the Cerulean Sea. This is a book my daughter shared with me, and I don't know, it's just one of those books where I fell in love and I was happy. It wasn't angst, and obviously there are conflicts and things to work through, but there was something so beautiful and tender, and a book that uses fantastical creatures so that it doesn't feel so threatening to me. So what I mean by that is, we have like a sprite, and we have a sassy little gnome, and we have a Guyver, sort of like this dragon bird like thing. So we have these characters, these 6, they're considered misfits, and they live at this little house because nobody wants them. Their families don't want them, and they're looked after by this man. And then Linus is sent in to investigate the school and make sure that they are doing everything by the books. And when Linus goes to the school, he discovers them as human beings. And truthfully, that's sort of what happened to me as a reader. So there might have been 1 or 2 characters, and I was like, ugh, I don't really like that one. I'm a little uncomfortable with that character. But then some of my own fears or my own biases just sort of melted away as I got to know them as individuals. And ultimately then the book just becomes sort of like this gentle affirmation of all of our differences, and in a way that maybe through courage and a little bit of open-mindedness, we can see the humanity in everyone. So when I presented this book to the department to consider, I just thought, well, I don't know, Teresa, you just might be on one of your random little happy loops here, and they're going to think it's really childish, or they're not going to like it. And all the teachers in my department who had read it, they came back just as happy. And we thought, I don't know, is there anything wrong with teaching something that makes us happy? There's so many things sophomore year, they're kind of dark. And Macbeth and Night, the memoir Holocaust, and there are just tough things. And we thought, there's value in this book, not only just thematically, but maybe just in this overall sense of helping us feel good. With this book, I had recognized that there had been, though the Curriculum Council did say, we'll go ahead and promote it, or whatever their word would have been, there was one member who cited an objection. And so I want to be honest with you about that and talk to you about it. Because the objection was that one member said, there's a passage implying masturbation. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know. Did I not read something? Did I skim over something? So anyway, I found it, and I want to read it to you because it's, if that's okay, because it isn't about masturbation. And I was just a little nervous that someone maybe didn't look at a passage fully and maybe had misunderstood it. And then that idea will be looming around the book. If you don't want me to read it to you, I won't. You have the books available to you, and you can read it on your own. I can tell you the page to go. So just tell me if you would like me to read that little passage or not, and we'll go on.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We love to be read to.
All right.
We're all
got that
5 at heart, so it's great.
But not my teacher classes. All right. So this part goes, I was telling the children good night. I start in order, you know, from one end of the hall to the other, and Lucy is always last, given that his room is in mine. But Sal is second to last, and before I knocked on his door, I heard some new happy sounds I didn't expect. Linus fidgeted in his seat. I'm sure it's normal. Okay, it goes on. Oh gosh, no, it wasn't that. Oh dear. And then it goes on to say, I wasn't speaking about that. I was talking about the clack of typewriter keys. Linus blinked. Oh, ooh, that makes sense now that I think about it. Oh, I bet it does. It was surprising, but not because it existed at all, but because it was much louder than usual. Most nights, it's faintly muffled because he's writing in his closet, the door shut. Linus understood now. I mean, if I overstepped, I apologize. Arthur held up a hand as he shook his head. Not at all. It was more than I could have hoped for. I like to think it means he's healing, and you played a part in that. So that is the section. And I think because, you know, Linus is like, I heard happy sounds, but I'm sure it's normal. I don't know. That might have been the part where someone had misconstrued that, but that is not what happens. Our little fella is typing and he's working on his own little memoirs. All right, so that's Cerulean Sea. I would love it if you read it all. It would just make you happy, and I just don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. All right, so for the next level, 11, oh, we were so sad to find that the year of American literature was the year where we had the least amount of diversity, sadly enough. So these are the ones that we would like to propose. The Kwame Alexander piece, Rebound, is actually the prequel to this one. And so for the junior essentials, then they could kind of continue, but go to the backstory and hear about the father I told you, who is, you know, like the basketball coach. So that is his story. It's still very accessible. It pick up, you know, kind of with the same character, there'd be that connection. It, again, would only be for the essential class, not the regular juniors. And then the other piece is this beautiful little book, Brown Girl Dreaming. And right now in our junior curriculum, or I guess I could say forever and always, because I think I've been here forever and always, that To Kill a Mockingbird is the last unit we teach at the junior level. Well, I mean, that may make us all personally feel good. We love the book, but it ends in the 1940s, and so much else happens past 1940 in America and in literature. So recognizing that, this piece focuses on the 1960s, and it's about a girl. She makes these cultural references to, you know, Martin Luther King, the marches going on, and it's just about a girl that's trying to access that sliding glass door that I told you about, right? Trying to imagine a world where things could be a little bit different for her. And this book is written in verse, and one that we would want to use at the regular junior level and the essential. Okay, I'm looking over my pieces. I think I'm ready for the new slide. You should see my desk. It's like this whole books everywhere. All right, so the next two books are for the advanced literature class with Mr. Wilson. He wants to replace the current Crazy Horse book that he has his kids read, the one written by Larry McMurtry. And somehow it just doesn't translate well, which may surprise you because it's Larry McMurtry. But it's just very hard for the kids to connect with. And so he found this one and really connected with it and would like to purchase this one for the advanced juniors. And again, when I say advanced juniors, I mean the lit, because we also have advanced juniors that are taking AP language. And then the Nella Larson piece, Passing, actually, I just got to know this one truthfully, because my son is in the teaching program at SOU and Academic Masters had us read one of Nella Larson's books. I had never heard of her before. So this is a very good book, but it would be like a choice book. It's not one I'm going to say every single kid in AP English needs to read, or every single kid in American Lit needs to read. It would just be one of those where we say, here's a list of 15 books. Here's a little book talk, reading rainbow moment about the book, and just an option. Now, there are other books that we have explored. I don't want you again to think we're just living in this vacuum, but they're just books maybe that there are just moments in the content that maybe don't feel comfortable. So I would like to find more Latinx writers, but some of the ones we looked at, like again on my desk, The Poet X. I mean, this is a great book, but I don't think I'd want to do this as an all-class read, because there are some moments of sexual awareness that happens, and truthfully, I just wouldn't feel comfortable with that, and talked to my department about it, and we thought, yeah, let's let that one be. There was another one called Perfect Mexican Daughter, and again, it was like, I don't know, that didn't feel right to bring it to you for an all-class read. But we'll still continue our search for more Latinx writers. And I also want to continue our search for Indigenous writers, because the things out there right now, like we do have the Sherman Alexie part-time Indian book, but that one just doesn't always, I don't know, maybe at a junior level, we could use something a little more of substance. But so many things that are by Indigenous writers include a lot of violence and abuse. And that's really hard to navigate. And you have to be really careful as a teacher when you navigate things like that. So we just haven't happened to come across that book yet to bring before you. But when I do, I will definitely come knocking back at your door.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Teresa.
you.
Are there any questions? And I should have noted too, there are, this is the year of language arts adoption in the state. And instead of adopting a textbook at the high school, they are recommending these books. We also will be purchasing an AP language textbook and a writing 121 textbook, which are also in the packet, but those are aligned to the colleges and what the colleges use. So we just wanted to make you aware of them. Any questions regarding the books?
Yes. So this is Debbie Brownell, and I've read all the books and
Thank you.
appreciate having them made available. On process, so the house in the Cerulean Sea, if there is a parent who kind of wants to bubble wrap their child, is there an alternative for those parents to request?
Debbie, thank you for your question. I think with any books, I think we need to be ready to have something, like Huckleberry Finn. There can be parents that feel very uncomfortable with that. And I mean, who are we to force that matter? I think as part of that building of relationships, we need to say, okay, let's talk about it. What are your concerns? And then always, right, find something that the parent and the student will feel comfortable with, for sure.
Well, I really like the book. I read it, as part of my personal reading. And then it was a very different process to reread it, looking at it from an educational standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And what came to me is we tell our students to be kind and honest and brave, and do not always acknowledge how hard it might be to put those words into action.
Yeah.
And these fantastical archetypes show how to grow and gain in confidence and ability to express those very qualities. And I was especially appreciative on the quote on page 190. "You are very dear, Linus Baker." So that was my thought on that.
Thank you.
I've read several Native American books lately, and I don't know if you've looked at Braiding Sweetgrass or Res Life, but those might be worth taking a look at. I thought the book on Crazy Horse was very helpful in looking at the culture of the Lakota people and how and why the actions that unfolded in that time happened. And my only my only criticism on it was he used in several instances this is what I'm going to tell you, this is me telling it to you, and then this is what I just said, process of teaching, which is not my personal favorite, but it does emphasize the points he wanted to make. I thought crossover and rebound were very accessible, and I was crying at the end. And then I thought passing was interesting and covered a feature of culture in what a person might have to give up,
Yes.
along with what a person might gain by changing cultural history. And then I thought it was interesting for the advanced student on passing to read the prologue, really kind of a academic paper on the book, and especially interesting from a feminist point of view, perhaps, in why there isn't more literature done by the author. And then I guess the only thing I haven't mentioned is Brown Girl Dreaming. And as you already mentioned, I think it's a nice way to expose our students to some of the historical background of some of the migration pieces of that time period. So thank you very much, and I enjoyed my reading very much.
Thank you. That makes me very happy, Mrs. Brownell. And I wrote down Braiding Sweetgrass and Res Life. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the suggestions.
I don't know if you can hear me or not. This is Member Neville.
Yes.
Yeah, so great to have all these different books that are kind of all coming at the same time. I'm curious how it gets rolled out and announced to parents so that they can be involved in understanding, and if there was potential for a conflict, they'd have a chance to read through, and would they see what we're seeing in summary of the books?
How do we roll out? I think that is a fascinating question, truthfully. I think we've been so in the process of getting things ready and then working through this that I guess I would honestly need to tell you that
Teresa,
I
don't
think
we add
would have
them?
to decide that.
Don't we add them to our syllabus? I thought with
Yes.
like part-time Indian and all that,
Yes.
we notify parents
Definitely.
through our syllabi at the beginning of the course, whether it's a semester or year long. You guys put it on there and let parents know the books are available for review.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to do as a department something bigger than that, but I know that we do notify parents of the required reading for our English classes at the beginning of each term.
Yes, that is true.
Thank you. Yeah, as long as parents have a chance to understand what those are outside, in addition to a title. Like when I read this, I understand the basic content. And if parents have the same opportunity to do so, perhaps without reading the entire book or just seeing a simple title, it's hard to deduce what's going on in a title.
Mhm.
Thank you, both of you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so the books are available here at the district office, and so the board can pick up those that they'd like to read, and we'll talk about this at our next meeting and vote on them, from what I understand. So, Gary.
So I'm really glad that you read part of that book for us, and I certainly have not read all these titles. But essentially my question that I was trying to formulate about these is if out of any of these titles you'd be comfortable that I read several paragraphs in the board meeting ahead of adoption type of thing.
Definitely, I definitely feel comfortable. I am probably, even for as old as I am, I probably become more uncomfortable and blush easier than anyone else. And I feel definitely okay with the pieces we have proposed to you.
Okay, thank you.
And Teresa, I just want to say that I watched you in the Parent Advisory Council and I watched you tonight, and your spirit is refreshing.
Oh,
Yeah, your passion and your spirit. I can't imagine what you are in the classroom and how engaging you must be for the students. Thank you.
thank you. That's very sweet.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
You too.
All right, we'll go to 4.1.3, our new courses at Gladiolo High School. So Director Evans.
Actually, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Shunk, who's going to speak to both classes.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So I've got two exciting classes to share with the board. The first one is the Communication Careers class, and this dovetails with our audio video editing class that was approved earlier this year, in the digital media class as well. And also works on a lot of the skills that local and regional employers are looking for in their new employees. The course is essentially a study of the communication process, with a major area of focus on communicating more effectively in a variety of professional situations, focusing on today's workplace. They'll work on sender and receiver, message, context, listening, how to be a good listener, and a variety of verbal and non-verbal skills, body language, things like that. And they're going to analyze, develop, and evaluate communication skills in interpersonal situations, small group interactions, and personal and professional presentations. They're also going to explore some possible career paths in the field of communication as well. So they'll have a kind of a career exploration component, and the vision is some possible kind of field trips when possible to go visit local communication businesses, maybe local news and things like that. But it's also trying to really at its root help kids be better communicators and work on those soft skills. Whatever career our students choose to pursue in the future, they're going to need to be good communicators. They're going to need to be able to hopefully present, be able to listen, and be able to work collaboratively in a group. So this is a class to help support those skills that should be applicable to whatever they choose to do in the future. Any questions on that one? Communication careers.
I don't think so.
Okay. That one's pretty straightforward, as is the next one. The next one's sustainable gardening. If you've been by Gladiola, you know we have a beautiful, wonderful garden in the back. And Mrs. Kennedy and her crew of kids have been working very hard. You can imagine without a lot of kids on campus during distance learning the last year and a half, and being largely driven by student help and support, some of the other plants took over, we'll say, and they have been working hard to get it and ship shape again and get everything organized. The planners are dialed in and working on just a lot of the systems to support a nice, healthy garden. And looking forward with the garden, thinking of how we can make it more, instead of this, because it's got the therapeutic component, the hands-on component, and it's great. A lot of students really thrive with working with their hands, and a lot of people just for recreation work in the soil. It's a therapeutic, mindful act. But trying to be more intentional with it from the academic perspective as well. And so trying to gear a course to support the garden to learn more sustainable gardening techniques. Techniques that will be in line with environment and local Southern Oregon kind of horticulture and agricultural techniques. And the goal is to teach students how to be able to grow their own food in a healthy way. There's a lot of research on food islands and a lot of people not being able to access healthy foods. You can go through a drive-through and get a $1 value menu cheeseburger, but a $1 organic pear at Whole Foods or Market of Choice is not findable. So if you can grow those yourself, I mean, this could potentially be a lifetime. This could potentially be a lifetime of access to healthy foods and wherever you live. So the goal would also then be to have this a little more formalized, because then we can look at possibly community partnerships, maybe farm to school or farm to table programs. I know OSU extension opportunities exist for local school gardens. And we have a lot of wonderful local business and community members that might be interested in participating in the garden in a little bit more kind of structured, focused environment. So that's the goal, to give that a little bit more structure, look for some community partnerships, and long-term help teach students how to grow their own healthy foods.
Right.
Any
Any
questions on
questions
that?
from the board?
Besides how many hours you want to volunteer when we get it up and running.
I was just gonna mention that I look forward to reading Master Gardener comments in the paper, and obviously they would have interest, and maybe they are involved in something like this where you have a garden spot and experts, that plenty of master gardeners out there to offer their services. I don't have a green thumb, so I rely on them.
Exactly. And I think that's the goal. It'd be a really neat way for our students to connect with the larger community with this too. There's local nurseries, so maybe jobs or career kind of exploration also. So we've got the resource already, just structuring it a little bit more, making it a little more formal, I think will help it grow.
Thank you. I think these courses are great. I was just going to ask if any board members wanted to come have a tour of the garden. Would that be something that we could arrange?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's we have it 5th period. Let us know, call the front desk, and we'd be happy to give you the grand tour anytime.
Great, thank you.
It's the noxious weeds are out.
This is Member Richardson. I did have one question under the communication careers class. Does that include programming? Because that's communication with the computer.
They have another with the audio video editing and the digital media classes. There's a little more focus on it there, especially with industry standard. Our understanding is the Adobe suite of programs. So students have been working with that, and this is kind of the extension of that, where students can use those programming and computer skills, kind of the more technology-based skills that they've learned, and then they can extend that into more creative communication. Maybe they're making videos, or doing a virtual tour of the garden. Or we were thinking also, our wonderful Mr. Miller, our science teacher, has a zoo in his classroom pretty much. So kind of, making videos on how to care for all the different lizards and fish and stuff. So this is kind of the extension of that, where they can use those programming skills that they've learned. And this is more of the practical application of it.
Well, I can tell you that in the trade magazines that I subscribe to, that there's significant pull of what amounts to communications majors from colleges into programmers, because they find that the communication skills translates well into programming skills. So That's definitely communication is a big part of future jobs.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? All
Will
right,
they
well,
have a garden stand?
Traditionally, Gladiola used to, usually in the springtime, and they would use the money for things at school, you know, it'd go into the kind of student funds account and could use it for pizza parties or things like that. So that's kind of the goal down the road too. Also, it'd be neat, you know, besides just generating income, if we generated, you know, in spring when it's harvest time, sending food and fresh veggies home with families for the weekend would be a pretty neat thing also.
Excellent.
veggies for pizza, I think that defeats the healthy.
Well,
eating, but-
No, it's net even, it balances out.
It's even. You
Right,
work
like
in the garden, you get.
Strawberries on your ice cream is net even, right?
We're just looking for more fiber, but okay. All right, well, thank you. We appreciate you presenting and letting us know what's going on at Gladiola.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll go on to Principal Thompson and Principal Napier. We got
All
4 new
right.
classes at GP, it looks like.
Yes, I'll introduce one of those. Before I do, just a quick comment on Teresa Conley. I don't know if you're anything like me, but anytime she presents, I feel like I'm a student in her class, and it's just kind of captivating. You just kind of listen to her go and teach for quite some time. She's a master, so we appreciate the work that she does leading her department.
Brian, I'll follow that up. And as a parent who has a daughter in her AP class, when the daughter thought there's no way I can survive this AP class, she's thriving because of Teresa Connolly. So kudos to Teresa. I was going to mention that earlier, so I wanted to dovetail on your comments.
She is a treasure. First up, we're going to have John Kellogg that I'm going to introduce. Teresa mentioned that we have at the senior level, senior selectives that seniors get to choose what 2 options for themselves, 2 1 semester options for their senior English class. Right now we have mythology, we have poetry of rock, we have film as literature, and we have AP English. We've also had a college writing course. However, we've lost actually a total of 3 senior selectives in the last couple of years through retirements of Marty Zatola and Sean Golden. So we are in need of identifying more courses. John has a senior selective course. I think we're a little, Todd, I'm sorry, we're going a little out of order. Sorry to throw you a curveball there. But we're going to have John go ahead and present that course. And following that, Ms. Napier will introduce the remaining 3.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Kellogg. Really happy to be here. It's super great to be able to talk to the school board and everyone else that's present. The class that I'm presenting, it's another senior selective, just like Mr. Thompson said. The name is still in flux, but currently it's called Video Games as Literature. And from the top, I just want to say I'm approaching this class from an English teacher perspective, not from an elective teacher perspective, because really I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the awesome narratives that are present inside of video games. And we'll talk about a few of those in a second. So if we go to our next slide, I actually have a video I made while I was stuck in quarantine. So as you see here, it says I got a little bit bored while I was at home. So if we could play this video really quickly, if we have the time, that would be wonderful. It just goes over some of the videos that will be in the class. Okay, sweet. So that was a lot, but basically that was a montage of the videos that I hope to have, the video games I hope to have inside of this class. This would take a lot of the same kind of structure as your classical film as lit class that we already have here. Instead of watching a film and then responding via analysis and actually taking apart that film, we would be able to be a lot more interactive and play video games level by level and do the same intricate analysis that we do in these other classes, building up those skills in writing, speaking, and making sure that they can really get into these narratives, especially at the senior level. So if we go to the next slide here. Thanks for that, Todd. I appreciate you. So my main proposal here, and the reason I want to do this class, is because I have a huge passion for video games. When I was a kid, not only did I read tons of books, I also played tons of video games for the same narrative value, not actually really to play and get good and play online, but because I just love the stories that were present. There's a critical need inside of our English classes for courses that break through apathy. It's very obvious to me, I teach both freshmen and juniors, that sometimes when faced with, for instance, a mountain of poetry, it can turn off some of those students that might otherwise be actually extremely interested in an English class, just making sure that we have the topic that interests them. So with video games, I actually believe I can reach that demographic of students that might not see English as their thing. So that way, at the same time that we have these AP classes for these students that are gearing up for college, we also have these very interesting senior selectives for all other students to be able to join their senior year. I have a quote here at the bottom that I found very, very kind of poignant by the author Jason Reynolds. You find the loophole with student writing when you find out what they're into. And just by a quick survey of my classroom, students love video games. Some of you probably love video games. And so it's a great way of connecting them to this content. If I find what they love, I can bring in that passion and make them interested. So let's go to the next slide here. I wanted to show this slide particularly because this is actually a story that I hope to teach inside of this class. It's called The Last of Us. If you guys have never heard of it, there's actually a great HBO TV show that's about to come out about this show. But one of the reasons I wanted to choose this is because if you're thinking to yourself, well, a video game's not a book, what's the actual content they're going to be diving into? The script for The Last of Us, in addition to having over 200 game awards, is about 231 pages long. So there is actual deep content they're going to be interacting with in this class, studying the different parts, using literary terms they would in any other English class. All right, if we go to the next slide here. As you guys heard from Teresa, we're really trying inside of the English department to make sure that we are showing students diverse literature, not only from diverse authors, but also showing diverse characters where they can see themselves. And as you can see from the screen, not every student is going to see themselves as a dragon, but there is extreme diversity inside of these video games, and being able to see yourself again is another way we'll be able to kind of get these students interested inside of this class. So another way that we go through this is through college courses. While I'm not currently aligned with these college courses, there are classes at Oregon State University, U of O, and Harvard that all talk about video game writing and how to actually write these narratives, because it's a lot different writing a video game where your character has choice and students can actually change the direction of a narrative based on what they want to do than if you're just reading a book where the character does what the author has decided. So students will have real choice in the literature that they're actually getting into. One of the things I also wanted to talk about, if we go to the next slide here, is I know whenever video games are brought up, there's that fear that we're bringing in violence, that fear that we're letting students perhaps go into video games that could create a violent scenario. And so I did want to kind of attack this head on because it is a myth. The Association of Psychologists of America has shown that in over 40 years of research, there's no link between violent video games and other violence committed by the youth. And on top of that, violent video games is not going to be the point of this class. It's going to be getting into these narratives, even though violence may be present in a point or two. Now, if we go to this next slide. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you. This class is going to have students analyze characters, plot, and the narrative structure of video games. Just like there are chapters inside of a book, there are levels in video games. For instance, The Last of Us has about 12 specific levels that we'll be able to go through and analyze just like chapters of a book. And inside this class, there will be rigor with essays and other actual articles that go over some really important questions inside of the gaming industry today. And some of those questions are, if we go to the next slide, are video games art? Do video games contribute to violence in teens? Can video games be literature? So really kind of questioning the whole class itself. And then how are stories told in video games, and can games add to narratives? These are all questions where 100 years ago, people were asking them about film. You know, can film actually be considered literature? And now with 50 years of video game history, I think we're kind of finally at the point where there's enough evidence and research to show the literary merit of these actual video games. So if we go to the next slide, I have a few brief slides on the basic class structure. There's 3 main video game companies that create about 90% of the video games in the world: Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. We'd start off with a very brief overview of how they make video games, because they all really have different kind of beliefs in the games that they make, how their stories are told. As we go a little bit further inside of the class, we'll be playing some of the most well-known games lauded for their stories. Tomb Raider, if you've never heard of it, it's a very, very popular video game, kind of survival of the fittest, a little bit of kind of Darwinism inside of it as well. And then in The Last of Us, it's really kind of a story about humanity. Essentially, a virus plague has spread, not necessarily zombie, but more on the kind of mushroom side. If anyone here has seen Planet Earth, there's a great documentary on it. And we'll get to analyze, what does it mean to be human, which really is one of the best questions I feel like we'd be able to analyze inside of one of these senior selective classes. And then finally, on our last slide here, my hope in the latter part of the class is to go over some of the games from my childhood, and specifically games that give students choice. So one of these specific games, the one on the right-hand side, the Stanley Parable, one of the reasons I'm so excited to teach this is because there's over 124 different endings in this video game. So literally every single student inside of my class, with every class put together, would be able to play a game and get a different ending, tracing the choices that they made to get to that actual ending. And so there's a lot of exploration that we'll be able to do inside of this class, a lot of fun. And overall, I think that I'm just really excited to get into this. I think on my last slide here, I just kind of say that as teachers, we have read entire books based on the gamification of education. When I was in my master's degree at Southern Oregon University, I think I took 2 classes specifically on the idea of how do we gamify our classes. So why not start with video games? Start with the exciting nature, build in those literary terms and narratives so that that way students can be met what they love to be. And so that's my basic idea for this course. If you guys have any questions, I would love for you guys to email me. And on this last slide that I have here, I have my email. If you guys have anything that you're concerned about, well, actually, I'll type in my email at jkellogg@GrantsPass, and here's some citations. So with that said, that's my proposal. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
I was just concerned it was going to be Grand Theft Auto. And
No, while those games do exist, that's not going to be our focus.
So before they get to go to the next level, they got to do a 5-paragraph essay.
Yeah, well, we may do 5 paragraphs. The main goal is I want students interacting with it level by level. So I want them making the same sort of intuitive analysis that they would have if they read To Kill a Mockingbird. Why are the characters making the choices? And then an awesome thing that no other real English class has is, what choices did you make to affect the story? Which will be really, really fun.
But they have to write about it?
Yes, at certain ports they will. Writing, we'll also have some speaking together. All parts of English will be in this class.
Thank you.
I'm just grateful we're finding novel ways, I think, to interact with students. I know that many of them don't want to read how to, To Kill a Mockingbird or some of these other books. They don't gravitate towards reading, but yet we still need to teach basic principles and thought processes. So I think this is a great way to engage them. So, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Do we, I know that there's like a game rating system. So do you happen to know offhand what the ratings are for those games that you proposed, or is that something that we could get if you don't know it right now?
Yeah, so I know the ratings of most of them in the course, just like we have the Motion Picture Association of America. There's the ESRB that rates video games. There are a couple of the video games that verge into the mature range, but just like we do show a couple rated R films inside of the film as lit class, I would probably just have a blanket acceptance inside of my syllabus. Since this is a senior selective, I don't see that being as big of a problem as if this were a freshman course, but I will get those to you if you would like them for all of the ones I've proposed.
I think that'd be good. Yeah, thank you. And then I also see as part of the course outline here that there's a request for some funding to purchase game systems in there. And
Yeah,
it sounds
so-
like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, oh, I was just gonna say, it sounds like that you have a couple that you're willing to provide, but you're also looking for up to 8 more consoles for the class. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I've been able to do so far, as I said, I'm an avid video gamer. I have a few of these consoles. You can kind of see it here. They're about $300 per console. So realistically, if you map it out to the normal textbook adoption that they do for a class, I would be able to get the materials for this at about a comparable price. And then the only fee that would be like year over year would be making sure that we maintain them after that point. And these last for about 4 to 5 years after purchased, sometimes longer. You just have to make sure you maintain them.
Great, thanks.
Member Brownell, I truly appreciate your enthusiasm and know that that is such an important part of the educational process, and applaud you for bringing your passion forward.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Principal Thompson, who's next?
Ms. Napier will be presenting the next 3 courses.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. So I'll start with the 2 marketing courses first. So currently in our business pathway, students take what's called Gateway to Business, which is kind of an introductory to business course. And then from there, they can move on to a kind of an overview of marketing. We call it Marketing 1.0, and then they can jump to Marketing 2 and then be your own boss. And so what Lisa Sorensen, who's our CTE teacher for that program, wants to do is really create some specificity within marketing. And so I know that my husband's in marketing, and so there's kind of a niche everywhere. And so the 2 that she's picked are fashion merchandising, which anything to do with clothing, shoes, cosmetics, which we know is a huge, all of those are huge industry. And then on the other side, sports, events, and entertainment, which again, another huge, big money industry. And so the kids will have an option to go from Gateway to Business to something that's a little bit more specific and again, piques their interest. You know, a lot of kids, I think we hear I want to be a professional athlete, but that's probably not in the cards for them. But if they could be involved in that sports or entertainment world in a different way, I think that this class could really be popular with regards to sports events. And then we have kids at school that are already creating their own clothing line or doing their own fashion merchandising. And so creating a course that, again, creates that niche, that interest, rather than just an overview of marketing. They can pick something that they're really specifically interested in. The other part that's great is as Lisa starts to kind of rebuild FBLA, as we are now back in person, these are actually competition standards within FBLA state and nationwide events. So within this class, you would also be able to help the kids work towards maybe going to a local, state, or even national competition with regards to FBLA. But they sound really cool and really fun. And so it's creating some specificity within the program. Obviously, we put these courses out here and we see what kids are interested in. And so if there's not enough kids that maybe find an interest in this class, then we won't offer it, but at least the option is there for them to take that business in the direction that they seem interested in. So those are the 2 with regards to our business and marketing pathway. Any questions on those 2?
What did you drink with your dinner?
Okay.
I think so.
Sweet.
We're good.
I will move on to then theater overview. So I know that Julia Cuppy came to your last board meeting and presented her kind of vision for the theater program and how she would like to see it move. Theater Overview is the introductory course. When she was here several years ago, this was the course that she taught. And it gives the kids kind of that introduction to what is theater, what are the different components of theater. It's not just acting, it's all the other stuff that goes into it with regards to behind the scenes as well. And then once the kids take Theater Overview, then they can kind of choose their direction. Do they want to go the performance side or do they want to go the technical side? And so what she's really doing is bringing back the Theater Overview class, which we had several years ago when she was here. And so it's kind of refreshing, updating the plan course statement that she had provided to us a few years back. And so this is where the kids will start in our theater department. Any questions on this one?
Don't think so.
Awesome.
Looks satisfied. All right, great. Thank you. Especially Gary, he looks very satisfied. All right, well, we will head on in our agenda to 5.0, our board reports and special concerns. I just want to give the board a brief update on where we stand with our superintendent search. Each of you should have had the stakeholder input report sent to you. We also have physical copies if you'd like to take this home. And for any member of the community that's on Zoom with us tonight, these are also accessible. You may come to the district and ask for one, or we can email you a copy if you would like, and you can get in touch with Tanya and read the comments. I believe it is 87 pages, 85, 87 pages. So there was a lot of comments from our community on our search. And I hope that each of the board members have had a chance to read through some of those comments and look at the thoughts and feelings of various stakeholder groups. I would also remind you that we have on March 14th, 15th, and 17th are 3 interviews. And Doug Nelson has asked for a pre-interview session with the board, and the proposed date would be March 10th. So I would like to get a nod from the board members if March 10th would be an acceptable day for you. And I'm assuming that would be around 5 o'clock or so in the evening. So
I'm good.
we have one yes.
I'm busy from 3 to 5, but other than that, I'm open.
Okay, well, we can wait a few minutes if that's okay. Okay.
For me, Debbie,
Debbie, are you good with that?
yes.
Okay, Gary?
I have no idea, and I won't until I get back to my Outlook.
You don't have Outlook on your phone? Well, we're gonna say that's a yes, because Gary's gonna clear his schedule. So thank you, Gary. So you're satisfied. Cliff, is March 10th okay for you? Do you know?
What were the dates again? I'll make them.
Thursday, it's a Thursday evening, March 10th.
Yeah.
5 o'clock. Doug Nelson would like to come speak to all of us about some of the candidates. Give us a rundown on who they are and who he feels would be some of our best fits and allow us to help narrow the choices.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We just as an update to the board, I do have the schedule here on the dates as the candidates come and their itinerary, what they will be doing, who they're meeting with. We have asked Renee Cardiff, one of our retired principals at South Meadow School, to kind of be I won't say a chaperone, but our guest presenter and take the candidates around. And we're also asking Jason Garcia. We have asked some others who have declined because they're out of town and for other reasons. So just so that everybody is aware of where we stand with this. So are there any questions so far on this? We do have 9 candidates so far that Doug has let us know have applied. And so he thinks that there may be 5 more before the end. So we could have a total of 14 individuals who applied. So, Brian.
I was gonna bring this up later, but it's appropriate now too. I'm seeing we have a scheduling conflict on March 17th with a budget planning meeting at 5 p.m. That is also, we have this on March 17th. So just wanted to point that out to everybody. So we'll probably have to reschedule that budget meeting, I would guess. That's 7.3 in our packet.
Good job.
Well, thanks for picking that up. So, well, I don't know, Sherry, are you on with us tonight? I don't.
we do have our budget committee meeting on the 23rd of February.
Yep, I can go ahead and change that. I'm sorry I didn't catch that that was already a conflict for you guys, so I will definitely change that.
Do we have to change that in action?
Or we can just stay really late, maybe have the candidate hang out with us so he can see, he
Get
or
a
she
real
can
good
see
idea.
what's going on. Okay. Very good. So that's our superintendent search update, unless there's other questions. And then are there any other?
And any information or feedback and stuff that's coming into the district, you're sending that back out to the board? So far, I've just seen the 2 documents.
What do you mean?
I'm just asking if all of the information that's coming in about the superintendent search is being pushed out to all the board members.
I mean, from the focus groups.
Yeah, that was one.
I think that's what that is.
Yeah, so you have all of the information. The other communications that Doug has are simple questions of scheduling times. If you'd like me to push all of that out to you, I certainly can, but there hasn't been any information that has been, I think, board worthy other than dates and scheduling things and my questions on candidates, which I just shared with you tonight. So that's really all that there has been.
And it closes the 14th.
Yes.
Monday.
That's the application period?
The applications.
Okay, and then it'll get narrowed down to whatever we decide.
Well, we will bring in, as we know, 3 candidates to interview. He will narrow it down based on, our comments as well as the community comments to those individuals that he thinks will best fit what we're looking for. And then the March 10th meeting will be probably bringing forth, more details about each of the
So we're
applicants.
talking top 3.
We meet the top 3.
On March 10th, he'll bring a selection, maybe 6 or 7, just depending. You guys will go through them. You're going to view a video of each of them that they're going to answer 3 questions. And then you guys will then narrow it down to the ones that you want to have.
So it's not limited to 3.
He's
Or is that the
suggesting
intent?
3, but if
Okay.
there was a 4th one that you guys really want to interview, then you would say, we really want to interview 4.
And where do we stand with the paper, all the disclosure forms and things that the board needed to fill out? Has everyone
That
completed
will
all?
all be coming to you from them, but they haven't done that part.
All right. Any other board reports or special concerns? Gary, I know you had something that you wanted to show.
And I have to.
You can go.
Oh, I didn't raise my hand.
I did, but I don't have to.
You can go ahead. Mine's more of just general info stuff.
Okay. I think this would be most effective if I read it out loud. I assume that everyone can hear me.
It's on, it's on.
Okay. So this is dated today, February 8th, 2022, and it's to the District 7 School Board and Community of Grants Pass. From myself, Todd Neville, Board Member, Position 7, regarding resignation from school board. I've enjoyed the short time I have served the school district and the community, even during difficult and contentious times. I was hoping to find a way to both serve on the school board and coach for Grants Pass School District. Unfortunately, the conflict of interest does not allow me to successfully do both. Because of financial and personal reasons, I find no other option than to step down from the board. I did not know of this conflict until after entering the election. The time has come to choose. I believe I can continue to directly benefit children by participating on the ground level as a parent, coach, and community member. I will therefore plan to attend school board meetings through February 23rd, 2022, and then step down so I can resume my coaching responsibilities. I hope you can agree to replace me on the board with someone who shares my conservative values and likewise represents the majority of the conservative Grants Pass community. I want to thank my fellow board members and the school administration for the opportunity to serve with them and feel honored to be a part
of the public input process. Sincerely, Todd and Bill. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Todd. We are saddened by your departure. And we're grateful for the time that we had to serve with you on the school board.
Thank you.
Part of that process then is replacing a school board member when someone resigns. That is something that hasn't happened, at least in my tenure, but we have a policy in place. Do you have a copy of that, or do we have a copy of the policy and what it states specifically? Todd, I don't know if we have something like that or if we can pull it up. But I can just give you a general overview. It is very non-specific. It states something to the effect of the board will replace a board member. There's very little process information on how that is actually supposed to happen, other than the board will vote and select an individual. In talking with Cassie as well as Superintendent Kolb, I know that in years past, there has been very little to no interest in any community member wanting to be on the school board. And so individuals have had to be asked to serve, and they have usually gone through individuals who have been serving on various committees, either in the on the budget committee or within various other committees within the district. Here's the policy as written up on the board. It says vacancies will be filled through appointment by the board. And when a vacancy occurs, the superintendent will call a meeting of the remaining members of the board in order to make the appointment. The board appointee must be a legally registered voter and must have been a resident within the district for 1 year immediately preceding the appointment. The appointee will serve until the next regular election, at which time a replacement will be duly elected. And so if we were to select another individual, they would serve through this year and then would have to run in 2023 for the spot. If the vacancy occurs on the board after the filing, then the appointee will serve until June 30th of the subsequent election year. So a board member so elected as a replacement will serve the remaining years of the term of office of the board member being replaced. And so that means that whoever ran and was elected would only serve for 3 years as opposed to the 4-year term, because you've, Todd, served for almost a year now. In the event of multiple vacancies, the position vacated first will be filled first. Upon appointment by the board, the new board member will be sworn and seated immediately. So Cassie and I have talked long and hard about what does that mean and how we would like to go forward. I suspect in our current political climate, we may have many people who would like to serve on the board. We did go back and look at a questionnaire that the previous boards had developed. There was about 40 questions, and we've honed that down to a questionnaire of about 10. And as we've talked, I guess I would make a proposal on how we should proceed, and I'm open for input from the board. But we have a 10-question questionnaire. I don't know if we have a copy of that we can put up. And it asks essentially why they would like to serve and a number of other questions that we can go over. We would see how many applicants filed, and we have to open the application filing for 20 days. We would post that on the website. I'm assuming that we could run something in the newspaper as well. But individuals who wish to apply for that position, we would ask them to fill out that questionnaire. As Cassie and I talked, we assumed that the best way forward would be to blind the answers to the questionnaire and let each of the board members read those questions and then rank the individuals. We would then take the 2 or 3 highest individuals and interview them, and then bring a candidate forward to the board for a vote. So that is our thought process moving forward. We don't have there is no prescribed process in place other than the board appoints someone to fill the vacancy. So.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, thought, input.
I don't have a copy of the questionnaire or application in front of me right now, but we'll have Tanya send that out to all board members tomorrow for immediate input and feedback, because we do need to schedule that posting right away to have somebody appointed to that position by the first board meeting in March.
I'm sending it to Todd.
What's the reason for needing to have them appointed rapidly?
Yeah.
Well, we do have a very important decision coming up in March of selecting a new superintendent. It would be nice to have a full board. We don't have to seat anyone. But I suspect that the board would like to have 7 voting members as opposed to 6. And so my thought process would be, if we can seat someone on the board, we should.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking about that is you're essentially seating somebody that knows very little about the seating of the superintendent. Essentially, they show up and get to see a couple interviews. So I'm a little conflicted at this point. I need to think about it a little bit.
Well, they will know as much as we know, because we haven't met any of the candidates either.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the
Holistically.
Yeah.
yeah
process.
How did we get here? Process.
Well, I suspect that, well, I don't know who would apply, but I'm assuming that the best individuals are probably individuals who have been paying attention to the school district and the school board for quite some time. So
Is that the application?
there is a copy of the application.
But not question.
Can you serve on the board if your spouse is employed by the district?
That's a good question. I
Your
did not
spouse?
read anything in the policies that said that they could not serve, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, quick answer to your question. Former employee, yes, definitely for sure. Current employee, the answer is still yes. However, they would have to declare conflict of interest should there be anything related to their status of employment or otherwise. So yes, a former employee could be on the board.
This would be somebody who husband works for the district and the wife's interested in the board.
That would be acceptable.
So Kirk, can you speak to any of the rules? Because I do not know, maybe our parliamentarian, if they had studied all of the rules of the district, which I'm assuming not, because it's a very thick manual. So if a board decides not to appoint, or what are the rules around appointing another board member? I know that we can go for a period of time. Is it, if I remember right, it was 90 days, or do we have to appoint someone, or what is the?
I will double check, but if I recall correctly, there is not, there's a prescribed amount of time. However, if we're unable to identify and nominate a board member, appears to be a lot of flexibility to that. So we'll double check that and make sure we're real clear on the process and eligibility and all of those pieces going forward.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a period of time to review and make suggestions on these questions.
Yeah, so we have 20 days that we have to post this. And then we would have to have a period of time to review all of the applicants, just their questionnaire. And then it would take time for us to meet, and we would have to vet out our thoughts. You know, I guess the board could come to a decision and say, we don't feel that anybody's qualified, or we don't want to move forward, but I think that we do need to at least start the process. And then we would have a tally, if you will, of who do we think would best be served. We'll select our top 2 or 3 candidates. And then we could perform, or we could conduct some interviews of the top 2 or 3. And then we would bring, and that would not be done before the board. That would be done with Cassie and myself, Superintendent Kolb, and maybe Sherry or some other of the district administrators, and then we would bring our recommendations forward to the board.
Would the other board members not involved have access to a recording of those, or would we just be hearing the report from the chair and vice chair?
I don't know what, I'm sure we could do something. It, we can't have a board, well, I mean, you can't have more, we can't do an interview.
Has
With
to
quorum.
be in public.
Unless it's a
Yeah,
public
there's
meeting.
public meeting laws that we would have to follow.
Right. I would be satisfied with the recording of the interviews. I don't necessarily need to
Oh.
participate.
Okay, but we can see what we can, we'll see what we can come up with.
So my suggestion will be, we'll get the board members tomorrow. You'll get a copy of the current draft of the application. And with feedback by Friday. So we would like to post tomorrow to start the 20-day clock. And then by Monday, be able to distribute to any interested parties the application itself. And so if that timeline can work, it's reviewing 10 questions and providing input to that and making sure we honor everybody's input in the question.
So we do have the questions up on the board.
That's not all of them.
These are 4 of the 10 questions, I believe. So and we would ask for a response from each of the applicants.
I'll email it tomorrow.
So in the past, so we have done this a number of times, right, Debbie?
Well, I know that when I first ran for election on the school board, I was the only person who applied, and the person whose place I would be taking then actually resigned before his term was up, and I was appointed to finish his term. And so I was on the board several months before I was there as an elected official. I was there as an appointed board member.
I too, Debbie, was appointed as well. It was done with a subcommittee when I came on, I believe. There were 3 board members. Same thing, 3 board members.
And
I
so
think
we had applications from whoever applied, and then we looked at those and interviewed candidates. So are we going to have applications that we'll review, and then we'll decide who's going to be interviewed?
Yes, that's what he just laid
he
out.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
that was
don't
the
think that-
blind part.
I don't think that our process is any different than what's
There's
been
no
done.
blind part.
Well, we won't put the applicant's name on it. We will just have their responses. You may read through the response. I suspect there will be a lot of individuals who are applying for the spot.
I'm pretty sure I've never been a blind before. We've always had applications, which we review, then selected candidates to interview. It's never been blind.
Well, that was what we came up with to keep it.
We've never had a divided board before either. And I think that is a factor.
We were looking for more discrimination or getting away from that type of concern with the political environment, thinking that we might have Scott thinks that we're gonna get 50.
I don't know that we'll get 50, but I
Right.
suspect we'll have
Quite
a
a
lot
few.
more than have ever wanted to be on the board in the past.
So every board member will be reviewing every application, and then the board narrows it down to a few for interviews, or chair and vice. Okay.
No, the board we will, so on the right-hand side of that questionnaire, if you'll scroll back up to the top, it says, I can't read it
But it says
You're
something
doing
about
already.
ranking, you score their answers to the questions. We will then tally up all of the applications for each individual based on a board score, and the highest scores will then be the ones that we would recommend come in for an interview. That way, the board is in a very blinded but very fair process, reading the answers that are given, ranking each of the candidates. The highest scored candidates from the board will then be invited in for an interview.
So are there questions related to kids that are in the district? Because we've always weighted board members that we appoint.
Here are the questions you may, we
But I
can
think
read
that-
through them each one if you would like.
To reiterate that the questions would be reviewed prior to posting.
Yeah, I mean, here.
More than here.
Well, Kirk's saying he wants to post Friday, so he wants us to review these like tomorrow. Which if a board member has maybe a question they want added or one that they don't feel is relevant. The timeline's pretty tight to do that. I mean, I already have one that I don't see on there that I might ask to be considered. So I don't know what the process would be, or if we have time to make changes with it trying to go out so quickly.
So the posting does not have to, we don't have to send the application right away. The posting is to start the clock. We can finalize this optimally by Friday so that if we do get inquiries before Friday, we'll be able to send them the application finalized on Monday, inclusive of all additional board questions. Brian, if that helps. Reviewing 10 questions, I would hope wouldn't take too long for board members, and coming up with additional, if you've already got one. I don't know that that's necessarily unreasonable, but this is your process.
So here's the dilemma that I see. So everybody's got their own question that they want added on. So how do we go about vetting all of the questions that all the other board members would like added? So here are the questions that we've had. Most of them focus on what is the role of a member of a school board? Why would you like to serve on the school board? What is the primary work of a school board member? What is the primary qualities you would bring to the school board? What are your primary qualities you would bring to the school board? What is the role of the superintendent and what do you understand that to be? What is your vision for education in this community? What involvement have you had in the schools and in school-related organizations? What new approaches to educational programs, theories, or restructuring do you feel deserve attention in our district? And how can you contribute to a successful board? And if you feel the power to change, if you had the power to change one thing in the district, what would that be? And is there anything else you would like to share with the board regarding your desire to serve on Grants Pass School District 7? I think that last question allows you to type in whatever you want. What other questions would you like on there? I mean, I think the best way to figure this out is to just do it right now in this meeting, because it's really hard after to get input from everybody and get a consensus on what we should be asking or not asking. So.
Yeah. So the one question that I actually thought of it because we have this question on our application for committees of the city, and it's something to the effect of, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the city or the school district? And I'm not totally sure that's addressed in these questions or if it needs to be addressed, but I just thought of that particular question and thought we should discuss it.
Sure.
So scroll back up a little bit, 2-3 questions. There's one there that's close. Yeah, stop right there. What involvement have you had with the schools and school-related organizations? So that's close to what I was thinking about. You know, in general, it's like they have kids in District 7, and what grade levels sometimes influences when you have two very similar candidates. So
when I see the mouse point kind of pointing out there that next question roundabout addresses the question that I had just raised as well.
Who's in charge of the mouse?
I'm guessing that's Todd. Yeah. I am this guy.
It's actually me.
Oh.
I think I found it in the email I sent to Cassie and Scott, so.
He's got control right now. I don't have it.
And
You want to
I'm
expand
trying-
your Word document real quick?
Gary,
I'll try.
you wanted to ask.
No,
if
just
they
expand
have
it.
children
Don't make it
in
bigger.
the district?
Expand it. Nope.
But.
Go to the right.
Yes,
There you go.
yes, they have experience with the educational system here in District.
For
7.
District 7 specifically.
I think involvement is probably more important than having children in the district. We have 3 of our board members who don't currently have children in the district, and I wouldn't want people to feel like they couldn't apply just because, or that there would be being because they don't have a child currently in the district. So but I think what experiences and organizations have you been a part of, I think is,
Do you want to say what involvement have you had with the schools or school-related organizations in District 7?
I can go with that's good enough.
With adding District 7?
No.
I don't think it needs to happen.
Okay.
so Brian, if we put what new approaches to educational programs, theories and restructuring or challenges do you feel deserve attention in the district if we were to add something?
I think that's close, but I think the difference is that question speaks more to maybe the curriculum piece and the education piece than just challenges the district faces as a whole, which may or may not fall under what is currently up there.
Well, I don't have any problems adding an 11th question of what are the challenges that you see facing the district? So that would be a very easy question to put on.
I think very similarly, that's a good question for an incoming superintendent to be knowledgeable about the district. I think likewise for a board member, I think adding that question specifically makes a lot of sense. Tanya, you're taking notes, right?
Tanya's
making copies.
She's printing this off for all of the boards so that they can look at it.
Okay.
So I'm very comfortable adding that as a question. We could have an 11th question, and I think if everyone else is comfortable with this, then that will save us a lot of legwork outside of this meeting to just
Is there a way?
add that and move forward.
Okay. Is there a way that we can restructure that question to encompass Brian's question?
Well, that's what he just said. He'd like to have it on its own merit.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
Debbie opens her email, she'll see it.
Did you have children in Grants Pass School District number 7?
Done. I didn't see the top part. We just talked about the questions. It actually asks that on the top of the application for Gary.
See, Gary, we thought of everything. You were just so concerned.
Somebody must have been in charge of the application last time. Part of it.
You're talking about including personal information.
No, District 7. The question Gary was looking for is on the top of the application. Do you have children in District 7?
So question 2, what is the primary work and role of the school board? I don't want to say that any question is unimportant, but that seems very boilerplate, like someone could just go on Google and be like, a school board's role is da 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 da, and they could just, write it in there. I don't know that that question particularly would add anything for me per se. If we were interested in keeping it at 10 and not going off of a round number, but I'm
For
fine with
me-
keeping it to 'em.
For me, that is the most important question. And I'll just explain my logic. If that's all that they do is Google it right off and put it on there, then that tells me that this is someone that I'm not interested in having. And how they answer that question for me, I don't care who joins the board. I want them to, as long as they understand what our role is as a school board, what we do and what we don't do. I think unfortunately, the community really does not have much of a concept of what a school board does and what a school board member's role is. And so the individual that comes on, if they understand that more than anything, for me personally, is who I would like to work with. And I don't care how they vote or what they think or conservative or liberal views. I just want them to understand the role of what we do here, what our responsibilities and our limitations are, and then and so that will be the one question that I will probably read more than anything and score based on the answer. If anybody out there is applying and is listening, that's
Yeah, I
for
was gonna
me.
say, you heard it here first.
That's right. That is the one question. So I appreciate what you're saying. I'm happy to have 11 questions. So I don't think 10 is, but for me, that is the most important question. What do you understand your role on this board to be?
I can tell you, having filled this application out in the past, and what I would say now, totally different. I mean, the same thing.
Yeah, so, but I think that question also makes people, if they're applying, have to sit down and think about what is the role, because there is a difference between being someone in the community who's watching and angry about masks or vaccines or whatever, and then understanding what the role is if you are to sit on this board, and what are you able to do and what you're not able to do. And I think that that is something that I want, and I want all the individuals who are applying to stop and think about what that really means. I mean, what has our training been on for these last, we now have our 5th one. I mean, that is all we've talked about, is what is the role of the board and the board members. And so those are hard things for people to understand. And again, that's, for me, those are the most important questions. So. All right. Any other questions? So if we're comfortable with that, I will add the 11th question. Gary's got his children on there, so that's great. We got that checked. And so Kirk, let's add that, and then let's we can use that as part of our, if we have consensus. Debbie, do you have any questions or concerns about the questionnaire?
Oh, I'm grateful for the work gone into this piece of information, and, you know, if other questions come up, we will have an interview process.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anything else under board reports and special concerns?
Gary.
Go ahead, Debbie. Gary's ceded the floor to you.
Okay, well, I received thank you notes from the students that I did the mock interviews with today, and I just want to send kudos to Shauna Bland and Ryan Thompson at the high school, and it was a pleasure to see their responses and reminded of that very pleasant experience. I feel like I have a little bit more experience to go into our next board exercise of interviewing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. Gary?
Well, we all have Lois McMillan to thank for this. This is one of those source document things. And Tanya, can you show that?
Todd's got it.
There we go. I'm just going to read briefly from this dissenting opinion, which actually precedes Brown v. Board of Education, which was the Supreme Court decision that said segregation in schools was not constitutional. So I guess with that as kind of an intro, I'm going to jump down to the conclusion parts, of which this judge wrote actually 20 pages.
Please tell me you're not going to read all 20.
I am not going to read all 20. These witnesses testified as to their study and researches and their actual tests with children of varying ages, and they showed that the humiliation and disgrace of being set aside and segregated as unfit to associate with others of different color had an evil and ineradicable effect on the mental processes of our young, which would remain with them and deform their view on life until and throughout their maturity. And now I'm going to skip through another piece of it. From their testimony, it was clearly apparent, as it should be to any thoughtful person, irrespective of having such expert testimony, that segregation in education can never produce equality, and that it is an evil that must be eradicated. This case presents the matter clearly for adjudication, and I am of the opinion that all of the legal guideposts, expert testimony, common sense, and reason points unerringly to the conclusion that the system of segregation in education adopted and practiced in the state of South Carolina must go and must go now. Segregation is per se inequality. And the reason I brought that little history lesson to the board is, so this is like 50, 60 years old. And like I said, it was a precursor to Brown v. Board of Education. And we're having a lot of conflict having to do with the diversity and inclusion. And as we're trying to maneuver through the new laws and things that come to us, that we need to remember some of these first truths, which would be that segregation is not equality. And because some of the ideas that have been floated in the past year or so and up at the state level actually involve re-segregating, maybe not necessarily on the basis of race, but on other aspects. And I just want to keep our North Star being that segregation is not the answer. So that's my little source documents courtesy Lois McMillan from the past.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gary, if you have a spare minute outside of the meeting, if you could, share those examples you're referring to, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right, any other board reports or special concerns? All right, well, hearing none, we will jump into our superintendent report.
Got to unmute. This is just the letter to the board expressing the need for our local boards to approve the local service plan for the SOESD. I think each year I take the board back through a little bit of history when we almost, we were out of the ESD for a period of time. And then Medford was considering the same. We essentially got the ESD to create a better menu of services that would benefit all districts by selecting which types of services we would want to allocate our monies to that the ESD gets based on our ADM. And then those monies that aren't used then flow back through in the form of general fund revenue. And so this is this is the letter to the board. It would be my recommendation that we approve the local service plan as presented in the approval section of the action items. And so if you would like more explanation, I can do that. If you would like more explanation about the services that we do access with the ESD, I can do that as well. But through that document, you can see the array of services they provide, and we use some of them, and to varying degrees for sure.
And Kirk, over a period of time, how much do you think roughly that saved us in percentages or Not necessarily dollars, but percentage of expense for ESD services.
I don't know that I could give you percentages. Sherry could share with you roughly the impact on our flow through dollars from the ESD. If you have any of that off the top of your head, Sherry, that would be helpful.
So this is going to be rough off the top of my head because it's been a while since I looked at that. But when we were originally looking at it, it was about, probably 500,000 a year that we were getting back in additional flow through dollars. And that's remained pretty consistent. Prior to the changes that were made, we were getting around 850 to 900-ish thousand back. And now it's probably 1.5 to 1.6 million in that range, pretty consistently. So those are real rough numbers, but it's about that.
And Kirk, can you roughly tell us what services we do purchase from ESD?
Sure, I'm gonna go through here and just glance through this. So there is some cooperative purchasing when they order bulk licenses. That is one piece that is helpful. Our substitute management system, Danny, you guys would know the name of it. Frontline, I think, is what we use for teachers to request substitutes. They manage all of that. They host a number of region-wide meetings that we do participate in. Some school improvement services when it comes to professional development and other programs. They have spearheaded some attendance stuff. We've done most of the attendance work on our own. They do host the regional CTE coordinator who we basically need to enlist to support our CTE programs. Some technology services, they are doing the data hosting for us for all of our data and backups. Mentoring, we utilize our mentoring program for new teachers and administrators. We definitely rely heavily on Charlie Bauer for migrant education, Indian education, and English language learners. We have been a strong participant in Southern Oregon Success SOARS with the brain science work. So Student Success Act support, they have helped us draft, craft, and revise our plans that we submit to ODE. So they've been very helpful with that. And then some special education services, for sure, audiological services, autism services, deaf and hard of hearing, some evaluations with early childhood, and a number of other areas where they support our students directly with their staff, but also in terms of programs overall. Library services, the Follett system is what we use to check out books for kids. So it's a variety of things throughout that. But as Sherry shared with you, the numbers over time, we had been previously essentially subsidizing smaller school districts, but now it's the small school districts are being taken care of and the larger school districts are paying for services that they actually utilize. So I hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, well, we will be coming up to that as an action item in just a few minutes. So any other questions for Kirk on that? All right.
Yes, sorry. Brief history as to why in the past you guys chose to go a la carte.
Yeah, the a la carte, which shared with you, the a la carte was you had to pay for everything regardless of whether or not you used it. And the bulk of the districts who utilize services through the ESD are much smaller and in Jackson County. So both due to the size of our district where we host our own site-based special education programs and things like that, we were essentially subsidizing that previously. My predecessor, a very penny-wise individual, who I believe you're talking about a little bit later on the agenda, really analyzed the system and put the pressure on the ESD to redesign their system of local service support and provision. And so it was a good thing that ultimately benefited the entire region and all districts that are supported by the SOESD. So there's a lot of history that goes back about 9 years. I want to say about 9 to 10 years. And then when Medford came alongside us, that really put the pressure on the ESD, because between the two districts, we were well more than 50% of the ADM in Southern Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll move on to our action items. 7.0, so we have 7.1, we have second and final readings of amended policies and ARs, and there are 7 of them, and I don't remember there being too much concern about these at our last meeting. So unless there's one that sticks out, I will entertain a motion to approve 7.1.1 through 7.1.7 as our second and final reading of amended policies and ARs.
Member DeLagrange, so moved.
Member Wilkins, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. 7.2, approval of SOESD local service plan, which we just heard from 2022 through 2023. Entertain a motion to approve.
Member Brownell, I move that we approve the SOESD local service plan for the 2022-2023 year.
Member Goldman, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, concerns, questions? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. 7.3, approval of 2022-2023 budget calendar, which we heard from earlier, does have a discrepancy.
Yeah, do we need to?
So we can approve it with modification of March 17th. And Sherry will work on that for us. So are we comfortable approving this budget calendar with one modification for March 17th?
Yes.
So Cassie has given us a motion to approve with modification.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Any further discussion or comments?
I would just comment that the first budget meeting is on Cinco de Mayo, and I don't know who scheduled that, but I'm gonna work with it.
Oh.
So
Tanya, can you order tacos for that?
That's what I'm thinking.
board meeting?
Get some salsa all the way around.
What day is it?
guacamole.
What day of the week?
Oh, I don't know.
It's actually a thing we have.
I think it's a Thursday.
It is, if it's a Thursday. That's fine. Go ahead.
All right, well, it's been moved and seconded. So we will have one amendment to that. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you. 7.4, approval of GHS courses, communication careers and sustainable gardening. Motion to approve those 2 courses.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. 7.5, approval of GPHS courses. So with the 4 courses we heard tonight, do we have a motion to approve those?
Member DeLagrange would move to approve 0.1 through 0.3. Some 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. The last one on the agenda, I do have concerns about, and teenage Brian would kill me for doing this, but I am concerned about some of the ratings of the games. I looked up over the course of the meeting, the ratings, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of the games in the syllabus have a mature rating, which is 17 and over. So I would like us to maybe have a little bit more review of the curriculum before we approve that.
can I just note that it is 12th grade selective?
You
It's not-
can.
It's not offered to anybody else but 12th graders.
Yes, you can. One of the games under that rating had it says why they're rated that way, and one of them had partial nudity. So I don't know if that, just as an example, not comfortable proving that.
So,
So I would move that we approve.
it would be nice, I don't know if there's still an option to ask some questions. I'm assuming that, I mean, from what we heard tonight, they're playing some of the games, they're talking about them. I don't know, I don't play these games, so I'm not familiar with them. I'm assuming that we're not playing nude games in the classroom. I mean, is that, I don't know. It would be nice to ask some questions to the teacher, so.
Are you there?
I don't know. But
I am here. I know that John Kellogg is no longer on the line. And just like I think Teresa shared with you, I think the language arts department very, very wisely and smartly thinks about, how did she put it? Things that make her blush. I think her department, she's the leader of that, is going to very much follow suit. The parents on I'll just say the parents on Parent Advisory Council, some of them had played the games and were highly supportive of the class moving forward. But we could definitely put more questions back to John if that would help.
I will say that I was at the parent advisory meeting as well. And there were, everybody, it was unanimous. People were very excited. I understand though, I think it's wise to be aware, but
Sure. Yeah, I've played some of these games too. So, I personally don't have a problem with them, but I can see how maybe some parents would.
And yeah.
But yeah, I'll go ahead and move that we approve all the courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll second.
Okay, so the motion then is to approve all 4 of the courses. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Brian, you're comfortable with that? And it's been seconded. Any further discussion?
Do we need to make it clear that there was a slight typo in 7.5.1 being
It should be
7.5.4?
7.5.4.
Yes.
Yes, we can make that amendment.
If nothing else, maybe the records could state that. Is this, first of all, my question is, does this have anything to do with my rollout to the parents' comments that I had back, or is this irrelevant to this discussion?
I think you can state whatever you'd like.
So it pertains to the books, it would also pertain to the games. And my concern would be if and how this gets rolled out to parents.
I think, correct me, there's having a high school student, you have one too, syllabuses come home. And you look through them and most teachers require a signature and sent back.
I'm not sure that's sufficient. I'm trying to recall my experience in dealing with the syllabus, and if that's sufficient enough to simply state the title of the book and that I'm approving it as a parent, if that's.
Is that?
Another way to put it is the district should be transparent. When they lay it out there, don't lay it out there like, oh, this is a good book and it's going to be great. This book has some controversial stuff, and just be really transparent that there may be some people that might have a problem with it. And if you put that in the rollout, then that gives them a heads up that maybe they want to check it, maybe they don't, not that somebody spun it and kind of tricked them into it. Just be really transparent.
And I would include the transparency of the mature labels together.
Sure, exactly.
So that it's totally obvious to a parent, whether they've played the game or they're naive to the game, what those ratings are.
Director Evans, can you speak to that? Would the syllabus include some of these transparencies for parents?
I can definitely talk to Teresa and John about how I feel like in all of the English language arts courses and really in all of our courses, and I know Ryan's computer died, so he's trying to get back on. But that transparency that Gary's referring to is very much a part of what they're trying to communicate. And anytime a parent has come forward with, I'm concerned about this, there are opportunities for opting out, opting into different books, for example. We could talk about, and I could talk to John about the course catalog description, just kind of a disclaimer, if you will, about the ratings of, knowing that there's going to be certain video games could also be in the course catalog. Anytime that a parent calls in or asks, can you tell me more about what this is about? A teacher is going to be fully transparent in that information.
That was not meant to be some kind of accusation that the district is not. It's just that sometimes we don't get it in the form that's obvious to the parent. And we just want to be really careful to get it so that the parent understands it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
totally took it that way.
Yes, and Trish, yeah, I'm not implying anything that we're not doing as much as can we do more?
All right, so we do have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further comments or questions, concerns? All in favor of approving these 4 courses, please say yes.
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 Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, 6 approve, 1 abstention. 7.6 approval of GPPD SRO interagency agreement 2021 and 2022. Kirk, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, or I can defer to Sherry. So, we have SROs on our campus and we have agreements with the Grants Pass Police Department regarding that. But we also have the Innovative School Marshal Program. So we have an interagency agreement to continue those services. Again, both have been tremendously excellent partnerships for the school district with our local police department. So, if there are any specific questions to dive into, Sherry's still on the line and can assist if I cannot answer the question.
Can you scroll down? There was one error that I just needed to point out in this, and it was a date under compensation. It says January 30th, 2021. It's been fixed, right? That's what it, okay.
Yeah,
So
that's what it says in the packet, but
it's been fixed. All right, so there are no modifications to this, then that is the correct information that we have.
I just had a question on under the Exhibit A, the duties of the school resource officer. Number 2, it talks about, it says to provide a program of law and education related issues to the school community, and then it goes into a list of topics. Is that something that the police department puts together as far as a program? Or is that something the district puts together? Do we put together a program in partnership? I was just a little bit curious about what that means exactly.
That is a program that is done in partnership with the police department and the high school.
Brian, are you asking for the marshals or for the resource officer?
The resource officer on number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is that something to where the officers are like coming in classrooms and teach, giving like little lessons to classes, or I'm just not understanding exactly what that means.
Todd, can you scroll down to that section, please?
I do know we offer a public safety course that is typically taught by one of our SROs. So that.
Can you keep going to Appendix A, Todd? Thank you. Yes, that is speaking specifically to what Kirk was saying, that it is a class that they would teach at the high school and kids would choose to take that class. They're not necessarily going into every class.
Okay, so I don't mean to belabor the point, like, is it like a specific class, or do they kind of go in like for a day or a weekend into this class? I'm just trying to understand how that works.
No, it was a specific class, Brian, that they would teach, and so the kids would choose that, and so it would be like a quarter class, and kind of helping kids introduce them to what an officer would do and the different public services that they provide to the community. So kind of giving the kids a taste of law enforcement.
Yeah, it's a semester-long class, half a credit, and includes the fire department comes out and does. So it's not just the SRO teaching. We have the fire department. We have other guest speakers teaching. We actually, I remember fire trucks and Director Zatola and I getting in the boom truck and going hundreds of feet in the air above the district office. And I got to listen to her scream and giggle all at the same time. And if you hadn't heard that, it's worth the price of entry. So.
Kirk, just to follow up to that too, 911 operators, court system employees, they have a large number of guests that speak to that class. And I will tell you that it has led to a large number of our students enter the career field within either law enforcement or related fields that they've had as guests. It's been a very successful class through the years.
Yeah, that all sounds wonderful. Is the SRO the lead, or is there a certified teacher that leads the class, or is the SRO in charge of that?
The SRO is the lead on that.
Okay.
And I know that there was some sort of certification that they had to do, but I'd have to ask Trish or Ryan to elaborate on that because I'm not sure about that part.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Yep.
Sherry, I have a quick question on the marshals. That goes
Yeah.
through the police department as well. Is that new?
We've had the marshals, I want to say, for 5 or 6 years now.
I know we've had the marshals, but is it on, I thought that they were our employees through.
Oh, no, the marshals are retired police officers they have to maintain their DPSST certification.
Okay.
I had a couple questions about the marshals too. And I think I may have been misinformed or just uneducated, because I was under the impression that the marshal program was, they were volunteers, which they are obviously not from what I'm seeing here. So, so we pay them per hour, and I'm just wondering if and you might not be able to get this right now, but I'm wondering on the estimate of hours that we pay them for per year. I'm just looking for, because we don't have a total cost like we do for the SRO, we just have the hourly rate. So I have no idea if that's 500 hours or 5,000 hours or the rough hourly amount.
I can get that for you, Brian. I don't know off the top of my head.
I would comment that they are retired PERS employees, so they're limited in the number of hours, and most of them work just under half time at the most. So essentially 20 hours per week per marshal is I think that, Sherry, that's when we modeled it out, if that sounds about accurate, but they're PERS employees, so they have a limitation on the number of hours they can actually be reemployed while collecting their PERS benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just looking maybe for like a total number, budget wise, that we spend for this.
I can get that for you, Brian. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what that is, but I'm sure happy to get that info for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And do we provide benefits for the marshals?
No.
If they qualify, so no.
No, we do not provide benefits because we contract with the police department for their services. And so we're not obligated to provide benefits to them.
Okay, would it be beneficial if to retain marshals?
I'm not sure what your question is, Cassie.
I'll email you.
Okay, sounds good.
So Cassie, we can't provide benefits because we're not their employers. We just
Right.
contract with Grants Pass Public Safety. They are limited because they're PERS employees who are retired in terms of what level of benefits they can receive through Grants Pass Public Safety. So we really wouldn't have any say in their benefit package. Does
Right,
that make
and
sense?
it does. My brain came in thinking they were our employees, so
Got it.
I got it.
I just had one other quick question. Just to understand how the Marshall program works, are they, when they're on campus, do they have like an ID badge? Are they like undercover? How do they, if someone comes up, are they going to be able to tell this person's a Marshal or how does that all work?
No, I don't know that I want to say they're undercover, but they're just dressed in regular clothes like any of our other employees at the school. They have a district ID badge. And the reason behind that is the program works a lot like the Air Marshal program. So on every flight, there's an armed person on the flight so that if there's something that happens, they are armed and prepared to deal with whatever that is. It's the same thing with our marshals. They are in regular street clothes. They do have a weapon on them. And so if there was, heaven forbid, a school shooting, we don't want whoever is coming on campus who's there to do the nefarious act to be able to identify that that is a police officer. And so, because, we've heard there have been situations where the person comes in and they take out the person that is dressed in the police uniform. And so we want to keep that, behind the scenes so that they are able to respond and deal with a situation if it is something that's dangerous like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
I love telling people in the public about these programs.
This one has been really successful. The school marshal program, we have gotten only positive comments about that. It provides a lot of comfort to the staff, to the students, to parents, because parents know they're there. They don't necessarily know who they are, but we have received nothing but positive comments about this program.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, why don't we approve 7.6 and 7.7 together unless there's some concerns. I will entertain a motion to approve both of those programs.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second, Member Coolman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
And any opposed? Thank you. It carries. 7.8, approval of budget committee members. Sherry, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The application that you have before you is John Higgins. He is our former superintendent, and I would highly recommend that you approve him. I don't know what else you want me to say. He's a great guy.
That should do it, I think. So,
Chair Nelson, do you actually feel that this applicant has enough relevant experience to be on the budget committee?
I actually do think that he has enough relevant experience to be on the budget committee. Thank you for that question, Gary.
I just want to go on record real quickly saying had a great conversation with Board Member Brownell regarding this and in ensuring process. And so typically the board has received applications prior to this going on the agenda. We just to inform the board, if you're aware of others who might be interested, we do have one more vacancy on the budget committee. Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong. Finding folks to serve on the budget committee is not as easy as people who want to be on the board, apparently. So,
and we did advertise for this position too,
Yes.
Debbie, and it was a couple of months before we even got an application in. So Kirk is correct. This is not a highly apparently sought after position.
Well, maybe we'll take some of our applicants and put them on the budget committee if they don't get selected for it'll be their trial run. So, okay, so we need approval of John Higgins as a budget committee member.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. All right, future meeting dates. We have a meeting, our fifth board training and workshop on the 10th, which is 2 days from now on Thursday, 5 p.m. I think Kristen tells us they still are not allowed to travel, but we will meet here and she will Zoom in virtually for our meeting. And our next board meeting is on February 22nd, and then we do have a budget committee meeting on February 23rd, which is the day following that. So any questions on our calendar?
I would just point out, noting Brian's expressed concerns at the beginning of the meeting, it is our intention at this time, after conversing with Dr. Nelson, board chair, that February 22nd would be in person in the library with public attending. And then, of course, the new requirement that it be available through Zoom for anybody else to attend. However, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your intention is for that budget committee meeting to be entirely Zoom for all participants, correct?
Yes, that's what I was planning, but we can change that if we need to, but I was planning on doing that as a Zoom meeting.
We didn't even bring up the fact that the mask mandate is apparently going to be lifted on March 31st. I was so surprised, but yeah, I hope that we will see some normalcy return and we will be back to our normal scheduled board meetings live and in person with whoever would like to attend, starting on the 22nd. And hopefully we never have to change that in the future. So, all right, with that, we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you all for attending. We will open our executive session in 5 minutes. So run to the bathroom, Cassie.